I'm Professor Martin Doel. I'm very fortunate indeed to be in an endowed chair by the Further Education Trust for Leadership at University College London Institute of Education, concerned with leadership in further education and skills. Further education and skills sector always looks on cabinet reshuffles with some concern, and I think on this occasion some concern and sadness that Justine Greening has moved on from her post. She seems to have been well regarded within the sector, and unusually for a Secretary of State to have come from a comprehensive education background and to actually have gone to a sixth form college, so had some direct understanding of the sector and the way it operates. She also was a strong advocate for the reform of professional and technical education, which was at the centre of the government's programme and also the industrial strategy recently released. So there was some concern that that direction of travel might be reversed or receive less attention with the new incoming Secretary of State. It remains to see if he is similarly committed to the programme. But at least the existing Skills Minister, Anne Milton, will remain in post and will be still charged with taking the programme forward. I also think on this occasion, and unusually, there's a degree of political consensus around the need to review and revise our technical professional education system, which is cross-party and actually gives us the prospect of a longer run at the reform programme and on this occasion. One of the reasons in the past that the reform programmes in further education skills have been so many and so frequent and so seldom seen through to their completion is the way in which further education seems to be amorphous to policymakers and seems to be appealing to do everything and do nothing specifically of a definite character. Tony Blair famously said, and I paraphrase his comments, that if I wanted to announce a major conflict or declaring war on somebody, I'd do it in the middle of a skills speech on skills because nobody would notice. Part of that comes from the sector's requirement to do everything, which then it gives it no sense of owning anything, which means new ministers come in feeling they can change the programme without it being noticed or being remarked upon or having a strong constituency to stick up for it. So institutions in the sector are driven by outside policy changes and have little agency to determine those changes themselves. And that's a concern going forward, I think. The subject of my lecture, I think, is how the sector, perhaps as a self-determining sector, needs to be more determined to define its own roles, to define the character of what it does, institution by institution, so stakeholders begin to own their college, to want their college to succeed, or want their skills provider to succeed, or the employers in those areas become the advocates for those institutions or those providers or those firms, rather than depending on outside sources to drive the actions. I really hate the term Cinderella sector. It implies all that I've just been speaking about, the lack of self-determination, of agency, of others doing things to the sector, rather than the sector stepping forward and moving away from a victim mentality to determine its own future. So I think integral in moving away from that characterisation is the sector being confident, individual institutions within it defining more clearly their purpose and what they uniquely and critically offer to the skills ecosystem, the educational ecosystem, the social inclusion ecosystem, and the way in which, if they are not supported properly and given the freedom in order to do that in an effective way, the systems overall will suffer as a consequence. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I look forward to seeing you at the lecture if you're able to come along. If not, then please be in touch. Part of the moving this agenda forward, I think, is having better conversations, both within academic institutions and beyond academic institutions, so we better understand the critical role that further education and skills education has to making to the future prosperity of individuals, communities, and the nation as a whole. This has been a production of UCL Institute of Education, University College London.